Right, so by my reckoning, it's 7 o'clock. So ever wanting to be punctual, we'll make a start. And thank you very much to everyone who's joined us. This week's topic for our webinar is around fundraising, which we all know is absolutely fundamental to everything we do, and obviously quite challenging at the moment. Specifically, we're not going to be talking about grant fundraising today, but more about fundraising through the community, through the network, through events and that kind of thing. And I'm really, really pleased that we've got two much more experienced group fundraisers than I am joining us today. Hopefully we'll be able to share some experience, share some ideas and inspire you a bit so that coming out of COVID, you're able to get out there and raise some money. So very pleased to introduce Amanda Morrill from Digswell Place in Hertfordshire and Sharon Garner from Wenlo in Leicestershire, who are here to share their experiences of fundraising at their groups. So I'm going to just start, I'll come to you first, Amanda, but if I can just ask both of you, just to tell us a little tiny bit about kind of the principal ways in which you fundraised for your group, not necessarily in the last challenging year, but in the time that you've been fundraising for your group. So Amanda, just give us a little bit of your background.
Good evening, everybody. I got involved about 15 years ago with the local RDA, Digswell Place, because my daughter was a minder at the time, and so sort of going up there I got more and more involved. I started helping out a little bit and realized that obviously, you know, money was quite an important thing, and that some fundraising needed to sort of happen. At the time, I think we didn't really have sort of any big events, and we'd previously lived in Singapore where we'd gone to a lot of charity balls, which had been very successful. So we decided, well, let's try and see if we can, you know, run a ball. That was our first major sort of fundraising event. We didn't really know what we were doing, and we sort of started off and we thought, and this is going back about 15 years ago, we thought, you know, if we can make about £1,000, that would be absolutely fantastic. And then we made £8,000. So that kind of made us think, actually, you know, we've got something here, maybe we can kind of build on this. And I think that was probably the beginning of it.
So, yeah, you've done that. Okay, and Sharon, how about you?
My time with RDA and with Wenlo isn't the amount of time that Amanda's had with RDA. I only came to the group towards September of 2019. I'd worked all my life, raised a family, and my career had been in law. So in 2019, when my youngest son married and I retired from my career, I suddenly, for the first time in a very long time, found I had time on my hands that was now for me to do things I wanted to. Now, in my local paper, I followed Wenlo RDA for many, many years, and I knew it was something I'd love to do. I've had a lifetime with horses, but I'd never had any experience at all with adults or children with physical and or learning disabilities. I happened to be at the CLA Game Fair down in Hertfordshire in 2019, and there was a stand for RDA, and the ladies on there were fabulous. They spoke to me, they gave me leaflets, they found my local group. I got in touch, I spoke to Dawn, I went for a look round, and the rest is history, really. I'd only been there a couple of months. I was going through my green cards, was really comfortable, very much enjoying it. And I just approached Dawn and asked if there was a fundraising committee. And if there was, could I become involved? Because through my lifetime, I'd been on the normal PTAs, helping with toddler groups. And then at work, I'd helped with charity events, quiz nights, fundraising, etc. So I'd always done it as part of a group, never on my own. But I felt I had that experience that I could bring to another committee. And I know if Dawn was to answer any questions, she'd say that Wenlo RD had been fundraising for many, many, many years, and they've done brilliantly at it. Everything from making themselves known on the local market, which is in Loughborough, which is a huge market, to, as Amanda said, balls, being present at local and regional summer fetes, and doing various sponsored events over many years before I joined.
So I think, unfortunately, at the moment, Ed's just frozen. He'll come back in when he's unfrozen. So apologies, everyone. Amanda, could you give us some idea on how you then built on the event and where it is today at the moment?
Well, to start with, I think, with any event, the biggest thing is venue, particularly if you're holding a large event. And I had no idea, so I just sort of thought, we'll ask around locally, and we have a lovely place called Chewinbury Farm Hotel, and they have a very big sort of, it's a bit more than a marquee, it's a sort of permanent marquee. So I went along to them and I said, would you let me please have that so that we can put a ball on? But we can't pay because we're a small charity. And I actually thought they'd probably say, well, no, sorry, because they normally charge about £5,000 just for the venue. And we were really lucky. And they said, yeah, that's absolutely fine. So we've kind of built it from there. And as I said, it was about 15 years ago, we had the first ball. And we've had one every year since at the same venue. I think we built up a really good relationship with the owners. They're actually friends now of the RDA, support us, and they only really support two charities, us and one other. And anybody else that sort of wants to sort of run a ball or any event there has to actually pay. So I think the biggest thing is sort of building relationships with the local community, so that you can get as much as you can without really having to pay for anything.
Oh, sorry, I don't know what happened then, but I was thrown out by the internet. But thanks, Roundup. I think you picked it up in the interim. So we just fill me in on where we've got to, talking about what makes it a success.
Yes. So Amanda was just saying how she built upon the event and how it's got to where it is today.
And is it fair to say, Amanda, particularly with an event, that as you go over time, it gathers its own momentum and becomes more successful? So you need to be a bit patient.
Absolutely. I think, you run an event and it's really successful. And then I think the fear is, how are we going to, do it again and make it even better? And certainly after the first one for us, as I said, we raised about £8,000 then, and we hoped for about 1,000. By the time we did our last one, a year and a half ago, we raised £26,000. So you get better all the time. You get more confident. People come on board. You do some things that maybe don't work so well, and other things that do, and then you have a blueprint which you build on over time. And I think getting relationships with the local community. Because we are a small charity, and we are really a community charity. We're a charity that serves the community, and I think that's really important to get across when you're asking for people to help and come on board.
And Sharon, what's your experience been in terms of running events like that?
Well, over this past year, we've just had to really cut down on events. They were all planned. I will totally agree with what Amanda says, that it's great to have help and cooperation from within your region or from a wider circle. But I really think you've got to start with the community. And the way I see it is, there are two communities with us. There is the community of RDA, which is our group, and that is volunteers, the riders, the families, the supporters, their schools, their residential homes. And then I think there's the other community, which is the community, the wider community where we're based. And it's forming a relationship with the villages, with the local businesses, even the local schools. And we're very lucky to be very near to two very good universities as well. And I think if you can get these people on board. And the one big event we did this year that was the only one we could really do, but it was very successful, was our 30th anniversary challenge. And we had to put a lot of time into planning it. We got a group together to do it, so we could bounce ideas off each other and that no one took full responsibility or the full workload. Anyone found doing that is going to push them away. But what we did find is we came up with an event that didn't exclude anybody. In fact, we tried to do the opposite. We tried to make sure everyone could be included as much as possible. We worked on using people's skills. So, for example, through my career, I'm happy to stand. I've been in a courtroom for years, and to talk, to sit, to listen, to think, to make decisions. You asked me to bake a cake or do a decorative card or knit a teddy bear, and you've got no chance whatsoever. So it's gaining the people within your community, which is your group, finding their skills and bringing their skills to the forefront in the hope that somehow between a group of you, whether it be small or big, you can put those skills together and then implement them into an event that hopefully is successful. And maybe we can do this again, you know, another year, now that it's, as with Amanda's Ball, now that it's been done once. Maybe it can be an annual thing, maybe not. But I think Dawn would agree that we're really proud to say that it took off so well, and everyone in the group, and then Instagram, Facebook, that sort of thing, really important nowadays. And really important, I feel, to keep our younger members and our younger generation included and interested.
Yeah, that's I understand that. That's really good. I meant to say, I should have said earlier on, by the way, everybody who's joined us here, if you've got questions for Sharon or Amanda, or indeed for us and my fundraising colleagues, please do use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen and type in your questions. We've got Kat and Randip from the office team fielding questions, so do feel free, and we can come to questions at the end. But Amanda, how have you managed to engage sort of the wider, both the group community and the wider community? Are there particular tricks to that?
I think obviously it's been very different, you know, recently because of COVID. I work at a small independent school, and the head is very supportive there. So, you know, we managed to put things out in the newsletter. If we're, you know, like for instance, the art competition that we're running at the moment, we wanted to do something through COVID, and, you know, that's gone out to our school and other schools. We've got a couple of local businesses, a sports centre that have been sort of on board for a couple of years. They chose us one year as the charity of the year, and they quite liked us and they've kept us. So they've been really supportive. They've just run a raffle again online through their clients on their database, and obviously gyms and health centres have been closed, so they've been struggling, but they've managed to sort of still send out. And they sent me a message today, and they'd raised £800 just, you know, on a raffle, which was really great. And, you know, when COVID isn't a thing, we have Dogs and Daffs, which one of our other members sort of runs, Sue Clark, and that's really, you know, very, very, again, it's a different event. So, you know, people don't want to come to a ball, they might want to come and walk their dogs. And
how does that work? What is that?
So Dogs and Daffs, we hold it at Hatfield House, which is very local to here, and people come along with their dogs sort of, you know, when the daffodils are out, we have a certain day, and they pay a certain amount of money to walk around the grounds of Hatfield House, which at that time of year are normally still closed, but we're lucky that Lord Salisbury opens it up for us. And then we have a few stands, and then we have sort of, you know, judging dog competitions, that sort of thing. And again, you know, that was sort of built out of nothing. That's been running for a few years now. I'm not quite sure how many, maybe sort of 5. And, you know, it raises about £6,000, maybe more.
Wow. Wow.
And that's, you know, that's another event. So if you don't want to go to a ball and you don't, you know, it's not your thing, you might want to take your dog for a walk. You know, we have a race night, which is, you know, just £10 a ticket, and you get fish and chips. I think it's targeting lots of different people, because, you know, people might not have 80, £85 to buy a ball ticket, but they'll pay £10 to go, you know, to a race night with fish and chips. So
Right.
I think
I'm glad you clarified that, because I slightly misheard you and thought it was dogs and dads, and was slightly worried about what that might be.
daffodils.
Sharon, you're nodding away there. Is that similar for you? And actually, incidentally, what was your 30th anniversary challenge?
Oh, okay. Well, the 30th anniversary challenge, Wenlo celebrated its 30th anniversary last November. So again, not long after I joined, there was a group of us decided that there should be some sort of celebration for people of present and people of past to join in. Now, the group's been going for 30 years, and Dawn started the group in November 1990, though she'd been with RDA for 10 years before that. And Dawn still runs the group today. We're very fortunate we live near a small village. We don't live, our group is in a small village with a village hall. So we had big plans of a picnic with a little bit of entertainment, ice cream van for riders, family, everybody past and present. And of course, that wasn't going to happen. So we got into the summer, and we all started to get a bit of a grip on COVID and the situation, and the guidelines and what could and couldn't be done. And 3 of us came up with the idea that we needed somehow to mark that 30th anniversary, because if it was left into the following year, things like that go on the back burner.
Sure.
The time, it's gone. People aren't interested anymore. So we came up with the idea that there's 30 days in November. It was our 30th anniversary, and we asked people within our group to do a 30-minute challenge daily. Now, that could be that 10 people wanted to do a challenge that day. It could be we got 1 person. It didn't matter, as long as we completed a 30-minute challenge every day. We did start to organise, think this through, write it up, and decide how it was going to work right back at the beginning of October. And I think when you're planning an event, that planning and preparation is absolutely vital if it's going to succeed. At the beginning of it, our hearts were in our mouth a little bit, that was it going to work or not. We set up an Instagram page so that people could follow it. We gave out information right from mid-October to say on the 1st of November we're doing this. Dawn gave them to every volunteer, sent them out to riders, families, etc. On the first day, one of our riders, Joseph, all our riders are important, him and his mum bought their wooden hobby horses, and they followed a hack out on their hobby horses. And they raised, just Mum and Joseph, through his school and his family and his neighbours and his friends. He raised just under £300 in that half an hour. The good thing about it is we were put back down into total lockdown again.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter where you did your challenge. Someone rode every day on their rower at home for 30 minutes. One of our trustees ran every day for 30 minutes till she'd done 30 miles. One of our riders walked with her dad throughout the month of November till she'd done 30 miles. Some of our volunteers dressed up, some of our riders dressed the horses up and themselves in fancy dress. We had volunteers painting horseshoes, crocheting. Again, as I said before, we used all the skills that different people had, brought them together, and with gift aid, our target was 3,000, which we thought was, but we'll go with the 3 theme, and we raised just under 5.
Brilliant, brilliant. Yeah, and importantly, as you say, you're both. It's interesting. You're both saying there in different ways. You're doing events and ways of raising funds that different people can engage with in different ways. So it depends what you do. And how do you, Amanda? How have you managed to, particularly those people who are involved, for example, in your events and things that aren't sort of regularly engaged with the groups through either riding or volunteering, whatever? Have you managed to keep people engaged in other ways?
I think it's communication is the thing, isn't it? And so certainly when we didn't think we could hold the ball, I made sure that I kept emailing out. We kept putting things onto Facebook, and I think what Sharon said, now we have to look at things like Instagram and Facebook. When I started 15 years ago, they weren't really a thing. Now it's everything. And another very important thing that Sharon said is the younger community. My daughter helps me fundraising. She's 26, and she works in PR, and it's all Instagram, Facebook, this, that, and the other, but it works. And I think just by on the Facebook page, just putting photographs up, if you have a raffle, which we had at Christmas. So it's just trying to sort of reach out to people constantly to feel like they're still part of it, despite COVID, lockdown, not being up at the yard. That's been the biggest challenge, I think, for every RDA, stable through COVID, I think, is, the isolation of some people. And we were certainly trying to, keep everybody together, whether it be sort of, by meetings on Zoom, or whether it be by, just entering something through Facebook.
Yeah, sure. And again, Sharon, you're nodding away to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I think you have to target every generation, from the 12, 13-year-olds that come in their school holidays, after school weekends, etc., that want to help just with the animal welfare, as well as with the riders. Right up to, we have riders that are, pensioners, and we have grands and grandpas that like to come and watch their grandchildren ride. So we really try and stretch across all the different generations. But I think during lockdown, money was very tight. Of course it was tight, and there was areas that it had to go first. So to use Instagram and Facebook, which is, virtually free compared to the process of printing and posting out.
Absolutely. And just thinking kind of beyond COVID and lockdown, because let's be positive and hope that that's a thing that's going to become less dominant in our lives during the rest of this year. What's the kind of core message you're trying to get out to people when you're asking them to support your group? Amanda, coming to you, do you have a sort of way of specifically getting that across?
I think when we're doing anything, we try to remind people and local businesses, whoever we're sort of dealing with at the time, that it is a community charity, and that whereas there are a lot of charities, every charity obviously is very important and has its place, but I think where we're unique is that RDA is like an umbrella over lots of different conditions, whether it be autism, whether it be a stroke victim, whether it, there are so many different things that we actually help. And I think we always tend to sort of, talk about that, because I think you reach out to more people. Some of the cancer charities, cancer has touched everybody in some way. So in a way, it's much easier. Whereas with us, a lot of people think, oh, it's a pile of horses, what do they do? And I think it's really important to say, well, we're helping, this person, we're helping that person, this child, this adult. And I think people are quite shocked at that. And I think when you actually explain that to them, you tend to get more of an audience.
Sure. Yeah. And Sharon, is that similar in your experience?
I think Amanda and I are totally on the same wavelength. It's like you're always taught, aren't you, from school, if you go for a interview or anything, that first impression is really important. And I think it applies when you approach anyone from outside your group. So when you approach any local business, society, such as the golf club or something like that, you know, the university, the school, can we be your charity for the year? Even the village, you know, maybe the church charity. I think you need to sell what the group does, because the people that can put the adverts on the TV for, and as Amanda said, all charities are worthwhile, and someone always has a charity in their heart.
Yeah.
But a lot of charities are under the radar because people really don't know how they work or what they do, who they help and how they help them. So when you approach anyone to be on your side, to sponsor, donate or choose you, I think you've got to get across what RDA is, what your individual group is. So though we come under the umbrella of RDA, we're responsible for our own group. I think you've got to put that across passionately. In a really good manner, and bring those people in on your side, start the relationship, and then work on that relationship and keep it going.
I think that's really interesting, and I like that local message as well, and linking. I think that resonates with lots of people. We're getting near the end now, and I just wanted to ask as a final question. I can imagine people might be watching this thinking they might be wanting to get involved with fundraising for their group, and listening to what you're doing and feeling a bit kind of like help. It all sounds kind of, you know, very well organized and professional. So just briefly, sort of, what's your advice for someone kind of listening to this thinking, maybe I should have a go, but actually I'm feeling a bit nervous and worried about the implications of it. So Amanda, what would you be saying to that person?
I think I always say, you know, if you don't ask, you don't get. And so when you're going out to people, sort of asking, you know, for a venue or them to buy a ticket, or if they could give something for a raffle or an auction, I think obviously, you know, you need to be quite brave. And sometimes people aren't interested. Sometimes people will say, well, look, you know, no, I can't help you. And at the moment, certainly because of what we've been through, a lot of businesses will be doing that. But I think you just have to keep going, and you just got to remember every little helps, and you can build huge things from the, you know, small things. We've seen how events have been very, very small, and they've just grown over the years, and then they've become, you know, sort of main events that actually bring in the money and that people actually look forward to. I think, you know, people will actually say, when's the next ball? When's the next Dogs and Daffs? You know, when are you having a race night? And when people actually ask you, and our ball this year, we sold out in 2 days. We've sold 360 tickets, and we've got 5 tables on the waiting list.
Right. Okay.
So
that's the event to be at in Hertfordshire.
as long as tourist allows.
And Sharon, how about you? What would your advice be?
Again, exactly the same. I think if you are a bit nervous about anything, I think what you have to remember at the end of the day, the RDA is a group, it's a team, it's not an individual person. And as I said at the beginning, find the different skills people have. You might have a fantastic idea of how you could raise money, how you could prepare it, go about it, deliver it. But you might not be the person that puts that to the local community or the local businesses. But there's probably someone in your group that says, well, I can do that. I can't bake a cake for it, but I'll go and speak to people. You've probably got people that aren't necessarily within your group, but they're within the family of someone in your group or one of your riders, who says, you know, I'm not going to come across to the yard, but I'll happily sit at home in my kitchen with my laptop and do some research for you. And as Amanda says, I think you don't ask, you don't get. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. You will get knocked back. It is disheartening, but you will reap what you sow. But nothing is for nothing. You've got to work at that, but work as a team, not on your own.
Yeah. So I think that's really interesting. So yes, so give it a go. Ask for help from the team around you. Don't be afraid to actually ask people to support and give you things. And persevere seems to be all right. So it seems to be the key things, and communication as always. So I think we've reached the end of our half hour. It seems to have whizzed by, and I think there's some really brilliant messages out there. So I'd like to say, well, firstly, congratulations on your success, and I think that that idea of getting something going and then keeping going with it is really important. I see that RDA Glasgow are letting us know that there's a virtual kilt walk going on from April the 23rd to April the 25th. So well done, Marion, for getting in there and plugging your event to a bunch of RDA fundraisers who that's exactly the kind of thing we want to see happening. But thank you for that, and thank you for all the ideas, and I hope people watching have been a bit inspired and hopefully reassured that they can get out there and raise some money to support the group. So thank you very much, everybody, and thank you particularly to Amanda and Sharon for joining us this evening, and have a happy Easter. Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.